Hello and welcome to our to Gotham Sound TV. This is our live stream about the D-Squared receiver. So we're doing this in a slightly different way. We pre-recorded a kind of show and tell, deeper dive into the D-Squared, showing off some Dante connectivity and some wireless designer connectivity. Here it is in the flesh. The Lectrosonics there it is, D-Squared receiver. And without further ado, let's roll our video. So let's jump right in. I want to show it from off, first of all, and we'll turn it on. And there we go. And it turns on. And yes, so for those of us thinking about using it in a bag, this is something to keep in mind. It does take a while to come up. Okay, so I also want to show, in addition to the receiver, the wireless designer from Lectrosonics, which is now natively Mac. So I'll be showing it on my MacBook. All right, so basically, it's got 4 receivers. The receivers are capable of receiving signals from the new digital transmitters and from the kind of legacy hybrid digital transmitters. And it's wideband. So, capable across 407 to, 470 to, I believe we said 614 megahertz. All right. So let's fire up Wireless Designer. Okay, there's Wireless Designer. And natively running on a Mac. And we're going to connect to it via network. Now, the first thing that you see when it's connecting via network is you need to type in the IP address. So if we switch to the overhead, oh, Jared, you're so good. Switch to the overhead. It's like we rehearsed this. And we go into menu, and we go into tools and settings, and we go into network settings. We will see an IP address. Now, we have DHCP enabled, and we have a router that's handing out addresses with a little DHCP server. I think if this were like truly a production environment, we would probably assign static IP addresses, but right now that is the IP address. 192.168.50.14, so we'll put this down and we'll go to the computer and 192.168.50.14 and we will say search, and there it is. Hallelujah. And we say OK, and it connects, and we are looking live at our D-Squared receiver. I wanted to walk through some typical use case scenarios. So probably the first thing that we would do is do a frequency scan and a little frequency coordination. So let's do a frequency scan, and we go to frequency scan and we say start. Now, what's notable about this, I think, is it's using all 4 receivers to scan. And that's good because obviously it'll complete the spectrum scan in a much faster time than if it just relied on 1 receiver. A note or maybe a point of discussion would be if we were in a live scenario and I was only using 2 receivers, but I was using them, maybe it would be great to disable those in the scan so that I wouldn't lose them. Because right now, if we were using this live, of course, we would lose those channels. So there is our spectrum. It's just picking stuff up off the whip antennas on the back. And I'll stop the scan, and I will export it to a frequency coordination. What's interesting is this is not a bad way to kind of go around locations and export it to a file for later use. So like if you were doing a location scout, you could use this as a scanner for UHF spectrum, which is kind of cool. Anyways, for now, we'll just export it to our frequency coordination, and it says it was done successfully. So now we will go to our frequency coordination. Here are our receivers. I have sort of pre-populated some options, but basically what I'd like to do here is, just to give everybody an overview, is I'd like to route the Dante outputs to a whole bunch of different Dante destinations, and I'll show you how I'm doing that, including a Diva 24 and a Yamaha console, and then on to Boom Recorder. And I also would like to wear an analog transmitter and a new digital transmitter, and I'll we'll record those files, or Jason will record those isolated tracks, and we'll make those files available so people can hear what some of the differences are. So right now, we did our scan, and if we go back to the computer screen, so we did our scan, and it looks pretty gnarly. So I've assigned up here, so channel 1 is our D-squared receiver, and if I double click on it, or sorry, if I go into my D-squared receiver, I've told it that its compatibility mode is D2. On the other hand, if we look at receiver channel 2, that's our analog transmitter, and I have indicated, if we switch over to transmitter, that it's a block 19 transmitter, and that my compatibility mode is North American hybrid. It's important to note that you have NA hybrid and NU hybrid, depending on where you are in the transmitter Etsy mask lottery, but in any case, let us go back to frequency coordination. Let's just tell it to go ahead and coordinate all of my channels. So there we go. And it's coordinated the channels. Now, I think one of the really cool features of Wireless Designer is I can drag and drop frequencies in real time and have it tell me what conflicts there are. So for example, let's say in my band plan, I want to keep all of my talent in this kind of, not the greatest spectrum, but let's try and keep it in 500 to 520, something like that, and avoid this spike here. So let's start dragging. So here you can see I'm dragging RX4, and I'll move that over here, and as long as it says no conflicts, I'm good. You can see those orange spikes are telling me exactly what my inner mods are going to be. So now this is RX3, and I don't know, I'll move it there. And for my hero mics, so RX1, I'm going to move it in here, and RX2, I'm definitely going to get it away from there. So let's try that as a coordination. I could also decide, just looking at the spectrum, that this area here I might be better off. But for now, I'm going to keep everything down here and see how that goes. And so now I'm going to deploy to system. And it's just warning me that I'm going to change frequencies on the receivers, and we're done. So now if we go back to the channel frames, yeah, all right, you can see channel 2 is suffering from a bit of noise, but I'm going to live with it since I'm right on top of it. And the rest of the channels look pretty clean. Okay, so let's start programming some transmitters. So for the DBU transmitter, and we'll go over here to the overhead shot. So here's our DBU transmitter. We're going to turn it on with a quick press so that we don't blast RF. And you can see that that is confirmed with that blinking antenna symbol, meaning no RF. And let's go ahead and IR sync. Okay, so we'll go into the menu, we'll go to IR sync, we'll say sync settings, let's say sync all, and we hit set, and success. There we go. So now we'll back this off, and we'll turn this off and back on again, and we are transmitting. And we can see if we switch to the computer, we have all of our status. I am going to just clip this to the outside of my lapel. Okay, it's right underneath my existing lob. And yeah, I guess it looks like my audio level is a bit high. So I'm going to go into my gain. Let's go overhead, gain, and I'm going to turn myself down just a little bit. There we go, 1, 2, 1, 2. That looks a little bit better. Okay, good. All right, now we'll set the frequency on the SMQV. We don't have the luxury, so to speak, of IR sync, but we'll do a quick push on the power just to get it on with RF off. We've coordinated this to 501.6, so we'll choose our frequency of 501.6. And there we go. Off and on again. All right. And I will clip this also to my lapel. It's a little bit lower and to the, well, there we go. I think I can do this so that they're about even. Not banging into each other. Okay. Terrific. Now we have audio going to the receiver. So let's actually route it somewhere. So I'm going to flip over to my Dante controller. And here in our Dante controller, we see all of the Dante devices. We have the Diva 24. We have the MacBook Pro. We have my MacBook Pro, just for giggles. And slot 1 is the Yamaha mixer. So just to show you some of the routing, slot 1, there's the DSQD receiver. Notice the D² receiver only shows up as a Dante transmitter. It doesn't show up as a Dante receiver because there's no audio outputs on it. So there's our routing there to the Yamaha. And we are also routing it to the Diva 24 there. And we're also routing it to my MacBook there. Now, to get away with all of that, all the different flows, we've set up a multicast flow here, which is really just, if you go to this, that option, you can create a new multicast flow. And that's how we did that. So if you try to do it without doing a multicast flow, eventually you run out of routing possibilities, and then you just switch it to a multicast flow. So yeah, we only have 2 transmitters going, but you can see, let's see if we can switch to the overhead. Yeah, there we go. There it is on the Diva, and I've put it on these faders here. So it's interesting to note while we're here, by the way, if I go to menu and I go to input control, and there we've routed the Dante inputs. By the way, in the Diva 24, the Dante inputs take the place of the AES inputs, and that's an option that you have to turn on. So yeah, we have control over the trim. So if I engage the trim there, I can gain it up, and I can also gain it all the way down. So if it's coming in too hot, I can gain it down. So that's an interesting thing to note. And yeah, there we go. So it's routed to my Diva, our Diva. And Jason, you're also getting it at the Yamaha board, right?
Yes.
All right. And let's see if I'm getting it here at Boom Recorder. Whoa, there we go. Yep, getting it there. Hey, 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 1, 2. Awesome. Okay, so there we have that. I'm going to keep talking just so there's some other audio. I guess the other thing we should show you is how we have this interconnected. So if we, yeah, there we go. So we're powering it with our my new favorite box, which is a PoE power splitter. So basically, it's getting PoE power from a PoE switch, and it's providing 12 volts to the receiver. And it is also, we're sending the control through the PoE splitter, and we're routing the Dante with a separate Cat5. I did try and do a little trickery where you come out of the secondary Dante port and use it as a switch, but for some reason it was blocking the control traffic. So it'd be cool if you could power control and get audio over one Cat5, but until either I or Electro can address that issue, you need two Cat5s right now. But yeah, I love the idea of being able to have this on set, like on the corner of the frame if you really need to have range. Or, it's not the worst thing in the world to pull. It'd be great if it were one Cat5 cable and you could just walk a receiver for a long walk and talk instead of having to deal with thick coax cable. So one thing I want to talk about is encryption. The new digital transmitters and receivers can be encrypted. So yeah, if we go to the overhead, there's a couple of different modes. Universal is kind of the basically no encryption, or I guess it's a single key. With kind of default encryption. Anybody with Electro receiver can receive this signal. And if I switch from anything but universal, and if we switched over to the computer, yeah, you can see I immediately get locked out and there's no key. And so I would then have to share a key via infrared in order to get it to open up audio. And there's different levels of encryption depending on what you want to do. So yeah, so definitely for those applications where real encryption is mandatory, either because of some kind of confidentiality arrangement or just discretion, yeah, Lectro has AES 256 grade encryption. One correction, thanks to Carl Winkler, or one comment. In the video, I did mention when you do a scan with Wireless Designer that it ties up all four of the receivers, and it'd be nice to be able to only tie up one of the receivers so you can stay on the air with the other three. Carl did mention that is a future firmware update, so that's good. So I really think that this receiver is really Electro did a great job. I think it's very, very compelling. The form factor is compelling. I found in tests here the range is really good, really great actually. And of course, the fact that you don't need modules that kind of lock you into an A or a B band split is really great. It's just 4 UHF receivers. Yeah, I mean, I think there's all kinds of potential in this. And as always, visit our archives at gothamsound.tv. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Send your ideas and questions to info@gothamsound.com. Thanks a lot for watching.